Reconvene our meeting to open session. The board has been in executive session since 6 o'clock to discuss personnel matters and contract negotiations. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have introductions.
Dave Hurst, Chris Meyer,
Christine Beck, Willow Bear,
Jody Monroe,
Holly Dellenbaugh.
Meredith Moriarty,
Jonathan Fishbein.
Wendy Sampson,
and Judy Kehoe.
Do we have any PIG students in the audience tonight? Welcome. Your obligation is to stay tonight until 9 o'clock or when the meeting ends, whichever comes first. And when the meeting is done, there are sign-out sheets up here for you guys to sign out. And if you need a signature on a sheet of paper or anything that you have, just come see any of the board members. And I just want to say thank you to Slingerlands and to Ms. Bonnequist for hosting us here tonight. We're very happy to be at Slingerlands. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the September 18th, 2019 regular board meeting.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Next are reports. Do we have anybody here from the Student Senate? Come on up. To the microphone, and if you could just state your name for us, that'd be great.
Good evening. I'm Isabella Meritato, and I'm the Secretary of Student Senate at the high school. This past week, we had a blood drive, which was very successful. We had many donors. The bread program, where we pack canned goods and bread from Panera that has been donated to us, we have been doing this program for a few weeks now. We have been doing it for a few years, but it's really starting to pick up, and we're getting into the swing of things again this year with that. And the third thing I have is that the freshman elections happen today and tomorrow, and the results for that will come out tomorrow, and soon we will have the freshmen join the Senate homeroom. And that's all I have.
Great.
I have a question. So
Yes.
we had an audit committee meeting, I think it was a week ago, and there are some funds in the Student Senate. So I'm going to give you a job.
Okay.
To go back and maybe see if they have any ideas of how they're going to spend some of the money that's in that account, because we need to bring it down.
Okay, I will tell them.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our superintendent's report.
Sure, thank you. So I have a few announcements. We had about 35 Bethlehem High School students who were among a select group of students from the Capital District to be honored at the University of Albany as 2019 Multicultural High School Achievers. The awards honors New York State high school students who have achieved academic excellence and been involved in exceptional extracurricular activities. The award ceremony happened on Saturday, September 21st, so I'd like to congratulate all of those students. I'd also like to thank Megan McCabe, who's one of our middle school teachers and coaches. She had a student who was actually choking on the bus, and she was quickly reacted, was able to dislodge the food, and not only did she save the student's life, she kept all the other student athletes calm during the experience, and I know several parents reached out and were very appreciative of her efforts, so I'd like to thank her for that. Also, the Bethlehem Strategic Plan won an Award of Excellence, and the award will be presented at a luncheon at the NYSBA conference in Rochester, and I'm hoping that someone or a few people from the board would be willing to attend to accept that award.
Do you know any specifics on when that's taking place?
I don't.
I know I'll be at the...
Do you know what day it is, Joellen?
It's Friday. So Friday
At lunch.
Okay. I know I'll be there, and I think Willow and...
I'll be there.
I plan on being there.
Meredith. I'm not sure if anyone else is attending.
Saturday?
The NYSBA convention.
I will not be attending this year.
To be continued.
Okay. So
I'll
at least
get-
3 of us.
Okay, so I'll get details on that, and I'd like to thank Joellen specifically, who helped with the strategic plan, and BOCES Communication Service, who helped with that. So we'll receive that award then. I also wanted to let the board know that I did have a follow-up conference call with school bus consultants last week. So we're going to reconvene the school start time committee October 28th. And one of their representatives, I believe the same rep who was at our last meeting, will attend. I also spoke with, they have one of their routing specialists who'll be working with our district beginning this year to help with some of the recommendations that was noted in the report, and we'll also develop the routing options based on the committee's follow-up discussions about their proposals and what was discussed. In speaking with them, it sounds like they'll look at efficiencies in our current system, but they want to have the committee look at the proposals. I'll bring some follow-up information based on schedules and some athletic information. And if the committee can agree to, we think this option might be the best, they would do their routing based on that and get more specific data that the committee could actually review.
I'd just like to thank the committee for everything they're doing on that. With the recent articles, particularly in the Times-Union, it's a movement that's growing, and it's nice that we are, part of it.
Yeah, thanks.
There was an article, I'm not sure if it was today, about the majority of school board members across the state apparently are in favor of starting schools earlier. And they haven't exactly figured out how to do it yet, but at least the idea is growing.
Yep. And my last announcement is that for the third year in a row, Bethlehem has been ranked number 5 out of 431 upstate school districts. I'd like to thank our incredible faculty and staff, our students, and certainly our community who are really so supportive of the school. So thank you. That's my report.
Any other questions for Jody? Next up is the board report. The policy committee met since our last meeting, and you can see a number of the policies that we went over on the agenda tonight. We have, after that meeting, we've now gone through at least once all of the policies that we have over the past couple years, and so we are going to try to come up with a good way to review them on a consistent basis so that we don't have policies that have not been reviewed for, say, 15 years. And that's all. And to keep on top of it.
Holly, do you have an idea of how often you might do it based on the number of policies? Like so many every 5 years or so many every 3 years? Have you thought about in other words, to keep the work at a reasonable level, but yet have a reasonable frequency of reviewing them?
I think we're going to try to continue meeting once a month and try looking at them at least to start in a block, like looking at the 1000s, some of which because we've just reviewed them fairly recently, will be a pretty quick turnaround. And then taking into account that there are some bigger policies that we have to review on an annual basis, like the code of conduct, which does take a little bit more time, and that we can try to put together maybe like a 3-year cycle for going through everything.
Thank you.
Last week, I attended the Beyond Plastics presentation at the middle school that was hosted in part by the Green Team, and it provided a lot of interesting information about plastics and why they are bad for our environment. So I just wanted to thank the Green Team for being part of that, and just to put out there that I think it would be great, any ideas that they have or that other people have for how the district can work towards getting rid of plastic and would be great. I would love to hear it. And then the last thing that I have is that I also last week attended the NYSBA's Board Officers Academy. And one of the issues that came up at the academy with the meeting of some of the different board officers was how to get students engaged with the board more than they already are. And one of the ideas that we had was to invite a representative from the middle school student council to come and report to the board in the same way that we have somebody from the high school report on a regular basis. So I reached out to Mike Klugman, and he's going to liaise with the teachers that work with the student council to see if they would be willing to participate. Who else?
Well, as part of the policy committee that we didn't talk about was there are policies that are not applicable any longer. So there are some that
Yeah.
are archived that we determined during the policy meetings that we won't keep up anymore, and we'll put them in the archive. And we had an audit committee last Monday, and we have Marvin and Company here today for a presentation, so I'll let him do all the fun stuff. And that's all I have.
Sure, I had a few things, if you'll bear with me. So, No Place for Hate met. I wasn't able to attend, but they made plans for the October 7th kickoff to Anti-Bullying Month, which is the month of October. So I think the notification went out today that October 7th is Wear Blue to School Day. And I think so many kids did it last year across the district. It was really nice to see. And more details will be coming out around the community walk, which will be at the end of October. So look for a follow-up email about that. I wanted to congratulate Glenmont for the Blue Ribbon Award, which I think was announced about a week ago. I think they're one out of about 300 schools in the nation that were given that honor, so it's a really big deal. So last week I went to a NICET panel. It was NICET's LGBTQ committee hosted a panel and book tasting, and our high school's Mike Mitchell emceed and did a great job. It was a group of educators and librarians and students that sort of shared experiences about being an LGBTQ member or ally in their experience in an educational setting, and they talked about sort of how to make educational settings more inclusive and more affirming, and it was fascinating. The librarians on the panel recommended a few books, so I brought them to give to the libraries. The idea being that libraries don't need like a special interest shelf, but just need books that happen to have characters who are transgendered or gay. So I've brought some piles of books for the library. They also talked about things like encouraging teachers not to divide girls and boys when you line up, and not to start announcements with ladies and gentlemen, because it's just not necessary. So it was very interesting, and I could talk all day about it, but I won't. Also, the high school field hockey team I just saw today was ranked in the top 20 in the Northeast, which is also very cool. That's what I have.
Sure. Last night I attended the math night at the high school, and you would think that elementary kids would not exactly be excited about math, but I stand corrected. I took my two kids there, and they absolutely loved it. It's a great math program that's going to each elementary school this week, correct? Yes. To do a program, and it was a packed cafeteria, and they had 4 different activities, and they rotated through, and it was really well run and well organized, and I know my kids had a blast, and it was just a great event, a really well attended and great event.
How was the turnout?
Oh God, 250.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, the cafeteria was full. I mean, it was packed.
Wow.
It was nice and toasty by the end of the hour, but no, just the games, the kids were into it. It made math enjoyable. It was quick. They moved you around every 10 minutes, so it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
Today was Walk to School Day. I know a lot of our elementary schools participated in that today. I myself walked with my children to school. It's a wonderful way to get the day started, a way to interact with your children, kind of talking while you're walking, and get a little exercise in the morning, get some of those, some energy out before the morning, and a wonderful way to interact with your community. So definitely encourage walking to school. Certainly having the day to do it to celebrate is wonderful, but obviously walking to school every day can also be enjoyable. I also attended the Beyond Plastics event at the middle school, and what struck me the most was when we talked about what was going on in our schools, about how we were working to decrease the amount of plastics we were using, how the different environmentally friendly policies that we were using. So many members of the community who aren't necessarily part of the school district seemed really surprised and really encouraged by what we were doing. So I think the more we can let our community know the different things that our schools are doing to be more environmentally friendly, I think would be great, because everyone was blown away by some of the stuff that our schools are doing, which I'm so grateful for. And that's about it.
Last Wednesday, I attended the town board meeting. The purpose was to support the Farms and Field Preservation Act, so that all the parcels that are being bought up in Bethlehem, and they're putting houses on them, the idea was to basically tell the town that every single-family home we build increases our school taxes. And that was received, and they passed the act, not because of what I said, there were other people there as well. But it's important to remember that every house that we build, a single-family home, does increase your school taxes. So it is likely the town will entertain a motion for a moratorium on building, and it's something that I think is something as a community we need to think seriously about.
I went to the open house at the high school last week, and it was crazy. I don't know how you can imagine, you know, every parking lot within a 5-mile radius, it seemed like, was full. And I missed homeroom because I was parking. So I didn't meet the homeroom teacher, but it was a very crowded and well-attended event, and as is open house in every building every year that I've had a child in this district. So it was very informative. And talk about moving around every 10 minutes. That's exactly what we did there as well.
Anybody else?
Just that we had our board retreat as well, and we had a nice speaker. Jonathan, you have the brochure in front of you since it's
No,
on.
actually, I gave it back to Holly.
So the name of the,
So many things, I've like
Generation.
forgotten what's happened.
Generation Ready.
Yeah, Generation Ready, who were part of our presentation at our last board meeting. And we had a great presentation from them to hear about what the board can do in its role to help facilitate some of the things that we need to be an inclusive environment.
integrating different cultures and diversity. It was really a great speaker, and it was good training, and I think that it's a great program that we're instituting at the school, and it'll be interesting to see what we do with it.
Next on the agenda is our presentations. First, STEM in the Classroom, a presentation by Ms. Bonnequist, Ms. Paradise, and Ms. Gagne.
Good evening and welcome. It's great to have so many people here at Slingerlands tonight. It's wonderful to see some of our current students as well as some of our former students out in the audience, so thank you for joining us. I'm not sure how many years the board has been coming to the schools for presentations, but as I think back to all of the presentations that we've done, I think actually the majority of our presentations, Jen, have been on science, which is great. We really appreciate the support that the board gives to our science program and the support that Jen Gagne provides for our program, as well as what our teachers and our kids do in the classroom. Tonight we're going to hear from Patty Paradis, who is a third grade teacher. Some of her children have joined her, some of her students from last year have joined her to talk about one program that she uses in the classroom and how she integrates her whole classroom program into STEM. And then Jen Gagne is going to talk a little bit more about some other programs that we do here with science at the elementary level. So I'd like to introduce you to Patty Parody and her crew of students from last year. Welcome.
Good evening, and thanks for having us. We're pretty excited. I see I have a couple of other students from last year that are here too, so that's kind of cool to see. So as they said, my name is Patricia Parody, and I'm a third grade teacher, and been doing it for a while. If any of you were at the opening day, more years than I would care to discuss. So I just want to introduce you to what our classroom looks like. This is a combination of some of a couple of years ago and then last year's team as well. So I refer to my students as young scholars and entrepreneurs because that's how I view them, that pretty much possibilities are endless. They're filled with creativity, there's lots of communication and collaboration that goes on, and I really look for them to take ownership and responsibility for their learning. So my classroom didn't always look like that. It looked a bit different years ago. But about 5 years ago, I had a student, we'll just call him Michael, and this happened late in June. Curiosity Space had come, and Curiosity Space, Peg Zakowski is here, she is one of the owners of that, and Kath Jeremita, who is in Seattle. They came with an entrepreneur from a company called Embed It. And my student, who had struggled a lot throughout the year, had this aha moment where he connected some of the content that we were studying with the STEM activity that this entrepreneur had presented to us. And because of him, it really just changed my entire way of thinking about my craft, making it more student-driven, more inquiry-based, and to include lots of integration of the other content areas, especially the ones that sometimes get a little bit neglected at the elementary level, like science and social studies. So it was really important for me to get that back into it again. So something that really enabled me to do this are the curriculum materials that are provided through Curiosity Space. And what you're seeing in that slide is some students who are busily at work, last year's team, working on their book of ideas, working on, you can see some sculptures that are over here on the left. They were contagions that were made by the students through the art teacher. We also have a music teacher here, Mrs. Plattick, who actually wrote a Mushroom Maestro's song based on some of the content that the students had learned. So this curriculum really allows me to use this new approach to teaching for me and gives them multiple options to access all the materials. So every student has a seat at the table and everybody is good at something. It's engaging, it's filled with opportunities to investigate, it integrates all the content areas with ELA and math and social studies and art and music. It gives voice and value to the students' learning, to their wonderings, and to their continuous inquiries. So one thing that I use through Curiosity Space is called the Book of Ideas. And the students, young scholars and entrepreneurs, refer to this as the BOI. It's the Book of Ideas. So this is a great place for the students to record and grow some of their ideas. It allows them to do drawings, they can design what their ideas and their innovations are, they write about their ideas, they improve their ideas. And we do talk a little bit about, we have a phrase, no name,
No fame.
no fame. So in order to gain recognition for their ideas, I do want their name on everything they do, but this teaches them a little bit about intellectual property, so they learn about protecting their ideas. It's also a great place for them to share their ideas and their innovations and offer input to their teammates. And on that note, I'm going to introduce you to 3 of the entrepreneurs, one at a time, and they're going to talk about some of their ideas that have been a bit of a springboard from the Book of Ideas. And so first, I'm going to introduce you to Kaylin Rosencrantz. And I'm going to let her, how would you like to do this? How's that?
Okay. Hello, my name is Kaylin Rosencrantz, and I am the inventor of the Blind-A-Walker. The Blind-A-Walker is a device that senses movement. For example, if a blind person walks by, or any other person who's not supposed to be in that place, it will send out a loud, noisy tone. But for a blind and deaf person, it'll send out a large gust of air and a loud tone. I'm still modifying it right now, so it doesn't have the strongest amount of air, and it is just a prototype.
Would you like to step out so you can show it? Over here.
for the fan. And that's how it works. I made the out of bits and pieces of an old Little Bits kit. At first, I actually had no idea what I was doing, but when I finished, I realized that I just made something that could help the world. The Blind Walker can help many people, including pet owners, blind people, construction sites, and many other people in different ways. Basically, anyone can have the Blind Walker for whatever use you may need. In kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, I wasn't that interested in math and science and all that jazz. But when I got home from school in third grade, I was researching biographies, how to build a birdhouse, science experiments, and how to make a moving robot. And since I did that, I learned so much and had so much fun doing STEM. I came to a point where I just wanted to make something, and one night I did. And that's how I made the Blind Walker. And also, Curiosity Space lets kids learn and how to do hands-on experiments, which you still have fun. Now that's a win-win. Any questions?
Any questions?
What inspired you to make that?
So I do have one inspiration. So in second grade, I did do a project about dolphins, and that had echolocation. So I thought, what about if I use sound to help blind and deaf people to get away from one area? Or I had tested this. I put it on my stairs so my dog wouldn't go upstairs, and it worked. So that's my answer.
How long did it take you to make it?
So one night, I first started off with the hub and a power button, and at first I made something that moved. It took about like a few hours, and then when I finished making this part, I realized that I used a sensor, and if it senses people who go in front of it, then it could make like a super loud sound. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. It's very awesome.
Okay, next I'd like to introduce to you Natalie Rousseau and her pet seat. So we're actually going to hold that for a moment.
Hi, I'm Natalie Rousseau. I invented the pet travel seat. I came up with the idea because I saw news stories about pets getting hurt or dying because people put them in the luggage storage on planes. The book of idea in Miss Parody's class helped me think about my idea and put it into better words and descriptions. My neighbor Mike helped me with the engineering and design process and the construction. STEM helped me open my mind and imagine in ways I hadn't thought about before. Now I look at everyday things and I think about how they were created and the thought process behind them. Curiosity Space helped me with everything STEM and helped me and inspired me to be my best in the classroom and also outside by helping me create on my own, which then I could share with my friends and classmates. Thank you, and do you have any questions?
Have you tried out your prototype?
Yeah, I have.
Cats, dogs?
Oh. We tried out the sitting part and it works with the weight, but we haven't tried it out with our real dog because she's way too big.
I guess you'll have to make another size, so it's a great idea.
Thank you.
They're better at this than I am. So another thing that Curiosity Space has allowed us to do is to integrate the science units. For example, one of the units is mushroom mice. These units give me the content tools, the resources, and the support that I need to facilitate their learning. The students are engaged in inquiry-based student-directed learning through teamwork, collaboration, communication, and a deeper thinking and bigger wonderings. It brings out their curiosity, their creativity, and their excitement for learning beyond the walls of the classroom. And the best part is the parents are as engaged as the kids are. They all know what mushroom mycelium is. So now I'm going to introduce you to Luca Goff and his mushroom car.
Hi, my name is Luca Goff. I would like to share with you Mushroom Maestros, a STEM project where you create things from mycelium. Mycelium is a vegetative fungus, like the root structure of a mushroom. You take the dormant mycelium, which is mixed with hemp, flour, and water. The flour is the food source, and the water activates the growing process. Then it turns into a glue-like substance. There are 3 steps until the mycelium is ready to bake into its finished product. These steps are outlined by the copy that are in front of you, along with the mycelium samples. Once step 2 is complete, you place the mycelium in molds. Then you put them in the oven to bake. Baking the mycelium stops the growing process and turns the mycelium into a hard object. Here are a few examples of the finished product. A STEM partner of Curiosity Space is Ecovative Design. Ecovative manufactures the mycelium that we use in our classroom. They collaborate with companies like IKEA and Dell to use mycelium instead of styrofoam for packaging because it's biodegradable and sustainable. Having the opportunity to learn and work with mycelium inspired me to research if mycelium could be used as a safety product. I'm working on an invention called the buffer. The buffer is a safety device on front and rear bumpers of cars and trucks, and my goal is to fill the bumper with mycelium and hoping it will cushion and absorb the force during a collision. I'm inventing the buffer because I want to help people stay safer, and I have a very big passion for cars. As soon as I find an oven large enough to hold a car bumper, we will test the invention. But I think I will probably start with a smart car. Last year was my favorite year in school because of STEM. The STEM projects in 3rd grade made me more aware of everyday things and how they actually work. At home, I actually took apart my playhouse and made something new with it. I've taken clay and mud out of my grandparents' pond and tried to create plant pots with it. I have so much more fun working on STEM activities. They've taught me that you can work individually or collaborate as a team to find solutions and explore ideas. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments?
Luca, go ahead.
How long do you have to bake it before it gets hard like that?
Approximately 10 minutes.
What happens what happens if you bake it for just a little bit less time? Does it still get slightly hard or have a little give to it?
I could not tell you that. I would have to experiment and find out.
The reason why I'm asking is because with the bowl, it has a little give, and it is about as light as styrofoam, maybe a touch heavier, but it's something that I'm looking at, I'm thinking, gee, this would be a natural way to package products as opposed to styrofoam.
Yes, Dell and IKEA package their computers and furniture with that. With it.
Really? Very
Yes.
nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the last slide that we have up here, I hope you can hear me. The last slide we have up here is just sort of a general peek at what things might look like in our classroom. The center part, the 8 characteristics of the innovative mindset, that's just something that I found with this George Couros, and it seems to be a great springboard for the kids. By the end of the year, they all know the terminology and they understand it completely. We also were able to engage parents a lot. We have lots of STEM activities that they come in, challenges they attend, and we get the K-12 supervisors here. They all know our room, they know how to get there, and they know they're our local experts. And then at the end of we also Skype with some of the entrepreneurs. So that's Colleen Costello from Vital Bio. And our E&L teacher gets involved fully in this because it's something that fits for all students. And then at the end of the year, this team decided that they wanted to have an innovative expo. And so at the end of the year, I think you may have gotten an invitation to that. We had 22 young scholars and entrepreneurs presenting different designs and prototypes and things that they had created, along with a PowerPoint that they designed as well. So we'd just like to thank you for inviting us, the scholars and me, and also for allowing us to use Curiosity Space's materials. It's been a great experience. Thanks so much.
Okay. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. We do have a little bit of a part two. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about tonight about our Lego 2.0 kits, which are used in grades 3 through 5. And Mrs. Parody's class actually used them this week. And what we've been doing with those since we've been able to purchase them last year. We're able to give one kit to every classroom in 3 to 5 last year. Graciously, those were given to us by Mr. Hurst. And then last year when we found one just really wasn't enough to engage a whole class, we were able to then add to the kits we were able to purchase, and so now there's a cart of 7 in every elementary school, and the cart is on wheels, and it can go from classroom to classroom. They allow kids to go beyond just buildings, so K2, we did a very big push, again, with the support of Mr. Hurst to get just goes into every classroom, and we had materials to go along with them to encourage building, but when they get to grade 3, we're really encouraging them to try to step into the programming phase and start to use some drag and drop to make these robots or their Lego creations come to life. And it's also, this program is already integrated into our new science standards, so it's been a very nice transition. So one of the activities that they're asked to do is when they look at natural weather events, like what can be done. So here's a natural weather event. In the aftermath, they're then asked to think about what needs to be done after a storm like this hits. And then they go through a set of instructions to make this helicopter that's able to deliver water and food and rescue animals or other things that might be left behind in the area. We all start out with a set of just basic kits, so you start small and then you build up to some of the bigger kits that are there. So this is just a set of the basic instruction that's done usually first in the classroom. And these are some of our students from this year that just got to start with the kits. So they're working in small groups. They needed to organize the levels, the Legos to begin with, but then they all had to go ahead and get onto the software. So those kids are downloading the software because they're getting ready to program theirs. And then we have some kids building. These kids built a little rover, which is one of the ones you're going to work with today. And these girls put together a little snail. So we would like to have you guys do a little bit of this programming so you can see what is done. The Science Cabinet continues to work on STEM in ways that we can add it and make it very meaningful. It's a part of our 5-year plan, and we're going to continue to work on these 3-5 and look for new areas that we could get it into K2. And I think that's it. I do want to introduce Slingerlands' official Lego master builder, Liam Smith. Mm-hmm. He has been our basically Lego support for the last couple of years, so I'm going to let him tell you just quickly what he's learned and what skills he's gained from this.
So I have learned that the Lego 2.0 kit has, it's basically opened up new doors for building and activities in classrooms. Like when I first discovered that we had a new Lego kit in our classroom, I immediately went to building it and figuring out what it could do, and I just found great joy in it, and I would like to continue that through the whole school.
Not only does he continue it through the whole school, but he comes with me when we did training last March during the superintendent's conference day, and he helps me train teachers in the kit. So he is also going to be your official helper tonight if you run into any trouble. So we do have 5 kits, or 5 little robots for you to program, and they get increasingly difficult as we move up. So I will tell you what they are, and then if you and the person next to you would like to volunteer for that one, Liam will bring it to you. So our first one is a spy robot that is on a motion sensor. Oh, they're all daring. All right, we can bring that to Mrs. Moriarty. And then the next one we have is a science rover, so it does move.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Guess we'll do the
Go to
virtual.
Mrs. Bear.
Instructions.
That's going to go to Mrs. Okay. And this one is a general machine that will help pull large items. Can go to Mr. Meyer.
We're going to get this most complicated one.
This is our bee and our flower, and it models pollination.
So what's your goal?
Mr. Fishbein would be great. And then this one is the helicopter that we demoed, but
Oh, the
we don't need it. We don't need it.
We'll take the
We'll
helicopter.
take the helicopter. All right. Then-
I didn't raise my hand for the helicopter. Wait a minute.
I'll take that
You
one.
want the bee? Okay, all right.
She's gonna shoot me.
I have a helper too.
All right. So you should be all set up with your software and connected. I gave you a little bit of a cheat sheet.
I have no idea
But
what I'm doing.
basically,
Are you kidding?
these are nice touch Chromebooks, so you can drag and drop as per the program tells you in the upper right-hand corner. And then when you think you've replicated what's up there, you can hit play. And if yours is supposed to move, please don't let it fall off a desk.
So I just have to hit the start button, right?
It's string us and down.
So you follow
That looks like that.
that's
Yeah, you just scroll across the bottom and then bring it up.
you drag that over next.
See, I knew I needed your help.
Told you that, and then you're trying to replicate that, and you can use the top right on the screen. It makes it easier.
We don't even know how to start. We don't even know.
I started. You're trying to find them down.
The sound. I gotta scroll, right? Good thing I have a helper. They need to. I think I'm good. I think you can move on.
Then what do we do?
Thank you.
you how the robot works.
Okay, we have one, right?
What is he supposed to do?
And now what? We bring another 8 up?
I think I press this play, right?
Well, so you connect the,
You're a spy robot, so he's not
you
going to
Maybe
connect
just
the
do
lock,
one thing.
unless you go in front
and
of the
then
TV.
you that
Oh,
one.
is he gonna do?
Click the green button. Yep.
Do I try starting again?
Can I move it this way?
Yeah.
Show off.
The next step is for the kids to come up and do
There,
different
and they have to
programs.
touch each
So
other.
you can go in here and you can change the number and it'll play you different sounds, or you can add sounds.
How do you get a new start button?
Okay,
Just take those off once you got it.
control that bottom line. And then you should find
We're up for the
There's only
challenge.
3 things. Okay, we got this. It
The
will-
back word, yeah, with the little pulley thing, must have.
4.
Oh, no, it's-
I thought it was gonna fly. Why do you think?
You have to tell it that.
Hit the start button, and see what happens.
Okay.
Very
Oh, she's close.
And then you can
Hook in it or
play
touch
a
it.
sound when he's
Go.
done.
Oh, cool.
You can bring that up. Then you can choose.
Oh, but you're
Now, the only thing
so
that was to make it,
two. Oh, yeah, and you gotta have two. Yes. You'll see why.
You can do that one.
Record your own sound and make the robot play it.
Yeah, it's working. Oh, look at that.
And then you can hit it again and it will fly. It got thrown off because it sensed your computer, but it senses the and then gets it to fly.
Thank you for helping us.
Okay, I can handle a 3-0.
Yeah.
I've just never even seen the program before. Like, I didn't know what I was doing.
I failed basic freshman year of college. It's not even a language anymore.
She got it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If any of our student presenters from before are still in the audience and they want to come up.
When I don't know how to use the remote, like my 7-year-old thinks I love Legos.
Christine, did you get her a
Hello, hello. I don't know if it's a challenging one, but I love Legos.
You figured it out?
I did. I'm so sad to
And that's all we have instructions.
You guys did awesome.
Too far.
Oops. Oh, yeah, don't make it kids stuck.
Oh, very nice.
I could be here all night.
Yeah, so we do have up to
So I'm assuming
different motors and different sensors. So there is a way that you can mount it on top.
go bag.
You just need to do it. Only one motor, right? But then, like, they can start, so the next progression is them thinking about how they can code more.
Steps 1 and 2.
When you're teaching coding, is it just the pictograms, or is it?
What happens if he's glazing?
And that's part of the program line code?
Yeah. It's 6.
Don't break it.
It used to.
That we use code.org to start it at 6, and then we use code combat, which is really gets into it in 7th and 8th grade.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. That's probably
What are you trying to get it to do? Well, you didn't follow the sequence at the top.
I know, it's so different, I know. Good, I'll come back.
You're being a rebel.
But they also build it? Not even. They build it.
Totally not a direction follower. Are you the type that puts it together and then realizes you did it wrong? Me too. Yeah. Oh, no, I usually can take it apart, but I'm usually not happy when I'm doing it. I always love going to see them. I'll go back to high school.
In front of it. Is that, this is the one that goes with that,
They were
right?
playing, they were bucking the system. The boys were doing what they were told probably not to do.
Remove from mold, make it to a mill.
Yes, it is.
Would have hazarded it, I guess.
Are there any questions? Apparently. Did you have fun?
I did.
We did have a good time. That was a lot of fun.
Sorry.
We needed help.
I want to come to the club.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
That's going to be a hard act to follow, but next up.
Wait, time out. The audit committee could be as equally as exciting as that can.
I don't know.
Next on the
He was
agenda.
all
we
watching
wake
that.
up.
I saw him. He's sad he has to follow that act because it's a hard one.
Presentation by Judith Kehoe on the 2018-2019 audit report.
That is an incredibly difficult act to follow. And speaking as your chief financial officer, while we like to be entrepreneurial, creative accounting is definitely a bad thing. So you will not hear any of that tonight in our fiscal update. So we once again have wrapped up our fiscal year. We were very mindful of the goals of the district. Tonight, when we're reporting out to you into the community, it's our opportunity to show that we are accountable for all of the resources and the taxpayer funding and state aid that comes to us. And to prove that we have followed the rules of accounting and that we are being good stewards, we are required to have an independent audit from Marvin and Company. They have been selected as part of an RFP process several years ago. I think this is their third audit now of the district's books and records. And tonight, once we give you the overview and once you take action to accept the report, we will then submit the documents to State Education Department, the Office of the State Controller, and then it will also be posted on our district's website so that people can have full access to all of that information. I would like to invite Chris Healy, who is the lead auditor on the engagement. He's going to come up and give you a quick overview of what they covered within their audit, and then when he's done, I'll pop back up and give you a quick run through on the numbers and what they mean for us.
All right, I don't have any cool toys or anything, but I do have a 75-page bound document for you all to read, which I'm sure is equally as exciting. I'm not going to go through all of the detail. I'll spare you all that. We went through in great detail with the audit committee, all of our reports, some of the trends, and the findings that we had. So you'll see it on the top. I left just a one-page summary. That's what I'm going to use today to just kind of run through the highlights of what we did. So as Judy said, you engaged us to perform an audit of the financial statements, which we did, and we provided an opinion on that. And the opinion that you're looking for is called an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, and that is what you'll find in the auditor's report on the first 3 pages of there. So that basically means that those financial statements fairly represent what is the financial transactions of the district and what's going on financially. The next section is management's discussion analysis. That's the A page numbers at the front. If you read nothing else, that's a good spot to go. It's a very high-level overview. What the year was like, what are some of the factors that are going to contribute to influence the future of the district. The next section is the B section. That's what we like to call the actual financial statements. And the first 2 pages, B1 and B2, those present the district as a whole on the full accrual basis of accounting. So that's what you would use to compare yourselves with any other business organization or nonprofit. Not that there's really much use to that, but the standards require that to be presented. So some of the highlights there, the net position of the district is actually $116 million deficit, which sounds like a bad thing, but really the reality is there's your retiree health insurance liability, which is an actuarial calculation. That's a $244 million liability. So that's basically trying to take and bring back to today's dollars what it will cost you for all of your current and former employees' health insurance throughout the rest of time. Really, there's no mechanism to fund that in New York State, that you have no legal ability to fund that, which causes your net position to be in a deficit. So you pay that year over year on a pay-as-you-go basis that's built into the budget. It's just a function of the way the standards are written that you have to present that. The next 2 pages are B3 and B4. These are your fund financial statements. This is probably more what you're used to seeing. This is the current year basis, what's coming in, what's going out. Really, the only thing I want to point out here is that your unassigned fund balance, which is required to be less than 4% of the subsequent year's budget by real property tax law, you are in compliance with that. You are under the 4% limit. Starting on page B7, it's the notes to the financial statements. Lots of good information in there. If you had any questions or wanted some more information about what the numbers represent, that's a great place to go look. And I noted on this little one-page summary a few highlights, which B16 breaks out where your restricted fund balances are, so how much you have in your reserves. B34 and 35 lists out your indebtedness, so your future payouts for your bonds. And then page B38 to B41 talks about that retiree health insurance liability. So since that's one of the largest things that you'll see, I wanted to point out that there's about 3.5 pages of information in that packet. Page C1 and C2, this is a required schedule by the state that's really a budget to actual. So I just want to point out on the revenue side, you are within 1.3% of the budget on the revenue side and 1.6% of the budget on the expenditure side. So that's really, really good budgeting to be within that little of a margin. So right on point there. Page E1 and E2, this is another report that we're required to give. This is the auditor's report on internal control and compliance. We did have one finding to report in that area. It was related to an adjustment that was made in the special aid fund. And really the reason that that's reported in here is just because of the dollar amount. We're required to report that. But the expenditure that was adjusted was within the grant period. So it was for a grant. It was within the grant period. It was a proper expenditure. It really was just a function of the timing for the actual financial statements. So there was nothing inappropriate about it other than just the period. So that's included in that section. And then the last piece here is the F section, which is the single audit section. So you expend more than $750,000 in federal awards. So you're required to have a single audit. Page F1 and F2 is our report on compliance with the uniform guidance. We had two findings in this area. We tested Title I and child nutrition. Both of our findings were in the child nutrition program. One related to the use of administrative prerogative, which basically lets the building principal provide free lunches to a student that they believe would otherwise qualify. I just want to point out that in that finding, everything that all of our discussions and all of our work led us to believe that the appropriate actions were taken. They just were not documented in accordance with what the grant requires. And then the other finding that we had there was one calculation of a student who received free meals, but they really were only entitled to receive reduced lunch meals or price meals. Again, not overly significant. We tested all of the students that had that determination. We found one there. Page F3 and F4 is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So you expended about $1.4 million. It lists out all of the different grants that you have there for your information. And then F5 is kind of a nice just summary of everything that's in that packet. It lets you know what kind of opinion we provided on the financial statements, lets you know if there were any findings, and it's really just a good summary. And then the other piece that we were engaged to do was the extra classroom activity funds. So we audited those in accordance with the cash basis, and we provided a clean opinion on those as well, so an unmodified opinion there. And we did have a number of typical findings that we see at most districts. It's a lot of student involvement, so there are certain things that the state puts in as requirements, and our findings under that are really just in accordance with what the state is looking for. We discussed all of those at length with the audit committee, so they're well versed on what was taking place there. So that's everything that you have in front of you, and if there are no questions, I will turn it back over to Judy.
I'm sorry, it wasn't as interesting.
There's only so much you can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It might not have been as interesting, but it really is a huge effort to put it all together. My staff have worked for months putting together the schedules and the statements it takes a lot to create a 75-page report, and then on top of that, of course, there's state aid forms that need to be submitted. So it's really crunch time for my office in the summertime, and they really have worked so hard to put it all together. And then, of course, it's sort of the closure when the auditors come and do their report and report out. So a lot of the information on these overviews are going to seem like old news to you, because I think we've talked about a lot of this as we develop the budget for this current fiscal year. But just so you have an at-a-glance snapshot of how we did, starting with our expenditures, as Chris had noted, we were in line with our budget for our increase in our expenditures, and we were at about a 1.8% increase in our operating expenditures. And a lot of that was driven by not needing to spend the full amount of our budget. We had some positions where they were unfilled for a portion of the year, and if we have a vacancy during the year, we look to make sure, do we need to fill it at that time? Is there another way to, based on changes in student needs, can we alter that staffing? And we were in fact able to save some money, and we came in under budget on the salary piece of it, and I think that helps drive those lower actual expenditure amounts from one year to the next. Similarly, where we had a decrease in our transportation costs, that was largely driven by salary reductions coming in under our budgeted amounts for the year. And we did have the transfer to the capital projects of $4.9 million. So that was, of course, approved by the board, approved by our voters, and that is shown as an expenditure in our general fund. But what really that is doing is transferring money in to reduce the amount of bonding that we needed to do on our current capital project. The next slide just gives you a quick overview on our fringe benefits, because that is a fairly significant portion of our total expenditures. And anytime we have increases in the low to mid single digits in fringe benefits, that's a great help for our budget with our cost containment efforts. Our health insurance increase was only about a 4% increase from one year to the next. So given that that's a $13 million plus expenditure, the lower we can get that percentage, the better it is for our overall finances. On our revenues, the largest change was driven by the tax levy increase that had been approved, and that was at 2.4% in the 18-19 school year. That yielded $1.5 million of the change. The other increase in that reflects the change that the state has enacted relative to STAR benefits. So as residents are transferring their STAR benefits off of their tax bills and opting to get that benefit directly, that is actually increasing the amount of taxes that we collect, and it's lowering our STAR reimbursement. So each year, that second line, the STAR and the pilots that you can see dropped by $76,000, that's a reflection of the change in the program, the way it is structured at the state level. So at some point in the future, that STAR number will probably be down to zero, and we'll see the full amount of the tax levy coming into the district. We had a strong year in our interest earnings. We had a few non-recurring revenues, sale of property. We did have a positive variance on our state aid every year, and we try to get it exactly, but a lot of the aids are expenditure-based, so we do have variations, plus or minus, on that. The transfers in debt service, that is a reduction, really reflects a catch-up transfer that we had done 2 years prior now in the 17-18 year. And the amount that's showing there in the 18-19 year of $356,000 is the normal amount that we're transferring in from that debt service fund. So, the fund balance and reserves slide, this you saw at our August meeting when we were developing the final tax rates and getting your approval on that and on the reserve amounts. But this is something that we do like to present so that we can remind everybody that we are in compliance with the regulations that limit the types of reserves that we can maintain. And as Chris had noted, we are below the 4%. We're at 3.99%, so it's about as close as we could get, which is really what we would like to see. If I had my wish list on legislative changes in the coming year, it would be to see that percentage be increased. So I got the TRS reserve through last year, or was happy to see that. So we'll see what we get this year. Okay. Lastly, just a quick recap on our school lunch fund. And that is something that continued to be strong this year. Our sales have steadily increased over the last 3 years, and Elisa Iser, our director, has done tremendous things in terms of building excitement with the menus and the offerings that we have. So that increase in revenues is a very positive trend that we hope to see continuing. On the expenditure side, we also had some good results. We were essentially flat with our expenditures, and that really helped us with that increase in the revenues to generate a bit of a surplus, which is what we were trying to have for this year, knowing that we were going into construction and that the kitchen was going to be scaled back for the first part of this year. My only caution on that was to note that under the employee benefits, that number went down because we had changes in employee elections. It could just as easily have gone the other way. So it really was a fortuitous event just in terms of benefit elections, and that's what helped give us that buffer coming into this current fiscal year. So the surplus that was generated in the food service program was about $10,000 in its actual operations. We had transfers coming in from the general fund, as is required, to help cover the cost of free and reduced price lunches. But it did bring us to about a $76,000 net assets or fund balance, which is right where we wanted to be, fearing that we might have a break even or potentially a loss based on revenue pressures with the construction. So that is the quick, not so exciting as science, but wrap up of the financial statements. If you have any questions, I or Chris are happy to answer them.
I did have a brief question about the extracurricular activities and clubs fund. That includes all of the clubs at both the middle school and the high school, right?
Correct. Any of the clubs that have the cash balances, which is most of them, are all reported on that schedule. Okay.
Just wanted to say thank you for all the work that I know it took putting all the information together.
We have fun with that. We may be geeky, but we like what we do. So thank you all. And thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, recognition of visitors on an agenda item. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to comment on an agenda item, now would be the time to come to the microphone. Next, item 6, action items. A, finance action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items 1 through 3.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Item B, professional personnel action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following professional personnel action items 1 through 8.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Item C, support personnel action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items 1 through 7.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Other action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following action items 1 through 3.
So moved.
Any discussion?
I had a question. Sorry, I think it was policy 9140. Aren't we there?
Yeah. Policy. Yes. Sorry. Other action items.
Can we, I just can't remember what my question was.
Staff complaints and grievances.
Do you know if it was the policy or the regulation?
I think it was the policy. My notes say gender identity question mark, but I don't remember what that means.
Oh.
Is there a list of classes?
Yes. Yeah, so we aligned it with what's in our other policies.
So do we, I mean, it's up for a first reading, so maybe can you think about whether gender identity needs to be added in there?
Can we scroll down to the
Annual
part that we're talking
notification.
about?
Is that weird? It's probably easier to see it on there.
I mean, it's such a, I'm sure that we just use this language for any time we're talking about sort of this protected group of people, but it's just something that stuck out to me as being missing. We talk about race, color, national origin, creed, religion, marital status, sex, age, sexual orientation, disability, genetic characteristics, military status, etc. I feel like gender identity is usually one of the things on that continuum.
It usually is, and I think it's usually in our policies.
It is, we talked about it, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah, we
thought
said
we
it would
said
be
we were,
aligned.
for some reason, I'm not sure why it's not in this policy, but it was in other policies. So we
Yeah.
can look at
Why
that.
why don't we put this, set this one aside, put it on the table, and send it back to the committee, and let them make the adjustment?
I think that makes sense to me.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
And we should do the same with the regulation that accompanies it.
Yep.
That was the only thing I had.
Okay. So with the exception of tabling 9140.1 and 9140.1-R.
Point of order?
Yep.
We want to
You want-
send it back to the committee, and we're not putting it on the table. I spoke incorrectly. I'm moving
Sure.
to send it back to the
Sure,
committee.
that's fine. Correct.
Jonathan, do we need to reapprove that with the removal or no?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to reapprove because we took that out? Do we need to do an?
I don't think we have approved it yet.
No, we haven't
Okay.
approved it yet. So we'll just take a vote on
On what's,
what's left.
yes, a vote on everything that is left with the exception of 9140.1 and 9140.1-R.
So moved.
Second.
That's what I was talking about.
Any discussion on any of the remaining items? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Item 7, recognition of visitors on a non-agenda item. At this point, if there are any visitors in the audience who would like to speak to the board on a non-agenda item, now is your chance. Item 8, future meetings and events. Wednesday, October 16th at the middle school, there is a tentative facilities committee meeting at 5 p.m. There's a regular board meeting scheduled for 7 p.m., the anticipated executive session at 6 p.m. The meeting following that is on Wednesday, November 6th at Eagle Elementary School, with the regular board meeting starting at 7 p.m., anticipating an executive session beginning at 6. Wednesday, November 13th at 6 p.m., we have a policy committee meeting. Wednesday, November 20th at Hammergrail Elementary School, there's a regular board meeting at 7 p.m., anticipating executive session starting at 6. And Wednesday, December 4th, is the board meeting following that at the high school, with the regular board meeting starting at 7 and the anticipated executive session at 6 p.m. Seeing no need to adjourn to executive session, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.